England has seen many bloody battles throughout its history, mostly during the numerous civil wars it has faced, but only one holds the distinction of being the bloodiest in its history. In today's video, I'm going to be covering the Battle of Towton and how it ended up cementing its name in history as the bloodiest battle to ever be fought on English soil. The Battle of Towton took place in 1461 in the midst of the Wars of the Roses. Now, I am currently in the process of making an entire series on the Wars of the Roses, which I promise I will finish eventually. But for those of you who haven't seen those, I will just give a brief rundown of what was going on in the lead up to this battle. In 1461, England was in the 6th year of the Wars of the Roses, which was really a series of civil wars between the houses of York and Lancaster over the English throne. The Lancastrians backed the reigning King of England, Henry VI, a weak and indecisive man who suffered from intermittent bouts of madness. While the Yorkists, who initially backed Richard, Duke of York, were at this point supporting his son Edward, who would later become Edward IV, after the death of his father. After a series of skirmishes in the months leading up to Towton, the bulk of the Lancastrian army eventually made camp in Tadcaster, about 2 miles or 3.2 kilometres north of the village of Towton, with the Yorkists led by the young Edward in hot pursuit. As dawn broke, the two rival armies struck camp under dark skies and strong winds, and although it was Palm Sunday, a day of holy significance to Christians, the forces prepared for battle. The armies gathered at Towton were among the largest at the time. Contemporary sources claimed that the soldiers on each side numbered in the hundreds of thousands, though in modern times we know these claims are likely great exaggerations. Modern historians believe that a combined figure of 50 to 65,000 is more likely, between 1 and 2% of the English population at the time. An analysis of 50 skeletons found in mass graves between 1996 and 2003 showed most of the men were between 24 to 30 years old, and many were veterans of previous engagements. While the Yorkists may have been a bit outnumbered at the battle, one major advantage they had was their leader. When compared to the Lancastrians' physically and mentally frail Henry, the Yorkists had an incredibly capable and strong leader in the 18-year-old Edward, who, in contrast to Henry's physical frailty, was said to be a tall and imposing sight in armour, standing at an astonishing 6'4". Crucially, Edward also led his army from the front, which would go on to play a pivotal role in the battle to come, as his presence and example ensured that his men held together through the long and exhausting struggle. Inevitably, the hour of reckoning came, and on the morning of the 29th of March, the two sides' men formed up in ranks opposite of each other on a plateau between the villages of Saxton and Towton as snow began to fall. A plateau which had been specifically chosen by the Lancastrian leader, the Duke of Somerset, as the site of the battle. As Somerset had meticulously planned out his army's position, he was content to allow the Yorkists to come to them, and as a result, the opening move of the battle was made by the Yorkists. Noticing the direction and the strength of the wind, the Yorkist commander of the vanguard, Lord Fauconberg, ordered all Yorkist archers to step forward and unleash a volley of their arrows from what would be the standard maximum range of their longbows. With the wind aiding them, however, their arrows travelled further than usual and plunged deep into the masses of Lancastrian soldiers on the hill slope as planned. Unfortunately for the Lancastrians, their archers' response would prove to be ineffective, as the heavy wind blew snow into their faces, making it difficult to aim, which resulted in their arrows falling short of the Yorkist ranks. The visibility was so bad that the Lancastrian archers didn't even realise they were not hitting their enemies, and as a result continued firing arrows until most had been used, leaving a carpet of arrows in the ground in front of the Yorkist ranks. After the Lancastrians ceased their barrage of arrows, Fauconberg ordered his archers to step forward and shoot once more. Once they had exhausted their ammunition, the Yorkist archers then plucked arrows off the ground in front of them and began firing the Lancastrians' own arrows back at them. Finding themselves under attack without any effective response of its own, the Lancastrian army moved from its position to engage the Yorkists in close combat. Seeing this advancing mass of men, the Yorkist archers fired a few more volleys before retreating behind their men, leaving thousands of arrows to hinder the Lancastrian attack in their wake. As the Yorkists reformed their ranks to receive the Lancastrian charge, their left flank came under attack by the horsemen from Castle Hill Wood. As a result of this swift attack, the Yorkist left wing fell into disarray, and several men started to flee. It was so bad that Edward himself had to take command of the left wing in order to save the situation. By engaging in the fight and encouraging his followers, his example inspired many to stand their ground, and the Yorkist left wing soon recovered. Elsewhere on the battlefield, the remainder of the armies clashed, with archers now shooting into the massive men at short range. The Lancastrians continuously threw fresher men into the fray, and gradually the outnumbered Yorkists were forced to give ground and retreat up the southern ridge. The fighting continued for another 3 hours, and according to research by English Heritage, which is a government body in charge of conservation of historic sites, it was indecisive until the arrival of the Yorkist-aligned Norfolk and his men. Marching up the Old London Road, Norfolk's contingent was hidden from view until they crested the ridge and attacked the Lancastrian left flank. The Lancastrians continued to give fight, but the tide of the battle had shifted substantially in the Yorkists' favour. By the end of the day, the Lancastrian line had broken up as small groups of men began fleeing for their lives. Polydore Virgil, a chronicler for Henry VII, said combat lasted for a total of 10 hours. As the Lancastrian route took hold, the tired Lancastrians flung off their helmets and armour to run faster. Without such protection, they were much more vulnerable to the attacks of the Yorkists. To make matters worse for the fleeing Lancastrians, Norfolk's troops were much fresher and faster. Fleeing across what would later become known as Bloody Meadow, many Lancastrians were cut down from behind or were slain after they had surrendered. Before the battle, both sides had issued the order to give no quarter, and the Yorkists were really in no mood to spare anyone after the long and grueling fight, which explains the slaughter that followed. Additionally, a number of high-ranking Lancastrians had substantial bounties on their head, which resulted in 42 knights being killed after they were taken prisoner. Horrifically, it is believed that the Lancastrians lost more troops in their rout attempting to flee than they did in the actual battle. Many men struggling across the Cock Beck, which is a stream with a bit of an unusual name, were dragged down by currents and drowned. Those who were floundering in the stream were also stepped on and pushed underwater by their comrades behind them, as they desperately rushed to get away from the Yorkists. As if this situation wasn't bad enough for the Lancastrians, as they struggled across the beck, Yorkist archers rode to high vantage points and began to shoot arrows down at them. As a result of this merciless onslaught, the dead began to pile up, and the chronicles state that the Lancastrians eventually fled across these bridges of bodies. The chase continued northwards across the River Wharfe, which was larger than the previous stream. A bridge over this river then collapsed under the flood of men, and many drowned trying to cross. Not happy with their kill counts thus far, the Yorkists then continued to hunt down and kill those who hid in the towns of Tadcaster and York nearby. Once the Yorkists were happy they had captured all the Lancastrians, the slaughter was finally over, and the battle ended in a decisive Yorkist victory. The amount of deaths total in this battle is expectedly hard to accurately estimate. A newsletter dated the 4th of April 1461 reported a widely circulated figure of 28,000 casualties in the battle, which most modern historians believe was greatly exaggerated. A more recent analysis, however, suggests that the total casualty figures were actually in the range of 2,800 to 3,800. Regardless of the exact number of deaths, it is still certain that the Battle of Towton remains the bloodiest battle ever fought on English soil. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, and make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Thank you so much for watching as well, but anyways, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.